tonight to share with you something that I've talked about, and this is from Psalm 139. I have an urge to teach it for for months at a time, but maybe I'll do just a little bit at a time. So in Psalm 139, I just want to read to you a little bit. You don't have to go there; you can read it later. Um, God said, "This is David." Now I'm reading from the Art Scroll translation, which is pretty good, but not perfect, but good enough. He says, "You've scrutinized me, and you know. You know my sitting down, my rising up. You understand my thoughts from afar. You encompass my path and my repose. You know all my ways. Before a word reaches language, you already know what I'm going to say. Knowledge is beyond me. It's exalted. I'm incapable of understanding it. Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. Um, uh, if I find myself in the lowest depths, you are there. Were I to take up the wings of dawn, were I to dwell in the distant west, surely your hand would guide me. What I say, surely darkness will shadow me. Then night would become light around me. Even darkness obscures not from you, and night shines like the day. Darkness and light are the same. You've created my mind. You wove me in my mother's womb. I acknowledge you, that I am wondrously fashioned. Wondrous are your works. My soul knows it well. My inner essence is not hidden from you. That which I was made in concealment, which was knit together in the lowest depths. Your eyes saw my unshaped form, and in your book all is recorded. Though they will be fashioned through many days, to God they are one. To me, how glorious, how marvelous are your thoughts. So you read this poem and you have a sense that you've been woven together by a presence far beyond our understanding. And as we recall from the book of Esther, for this moment you were woven together. For this moment you were fashioned in ways that you will only understand if we move to a higher consciousness in the most difficult moments. In the most difficult moments, all we know is our misery. But when we imagine that we have been wondrously woven together by a presence that we can barely know unless we work through what I'm going to call the suffering on this realm and tapping into this higher realm. See, for me, this is, by the way, Assagioli intimates this in the act of will. Again, a section that I don't teach much because it's not easy to understand. It's very spiritual. He was part of the transpersonal psychology movement. He was along with Maslow and others, the furthest reaches of humanistic thought. So remember, he has the strong will that isn't like because it wears out, the skillful, which he, of course, devotes most of the book, then the good will. All right, what's the benefit of a skillful will if you don't have goodness behind it? And then it's the transpersonal will, that the will is not about you. You're a vessel of a higher will. And he just waxes so deeply eloquent. And for many people, it's hard to grasp if you don't know the kinds of thoughts we have in Psalm 139. If you really sink into Psalm 139, you realize it's not about you. Something wove you together for you to maximize the light in this realm. And when you go to the deepest darkness, the light is there, but you have to channel the light. You have to be part of that light. And the deeper you go into the hidden chambers of the inner life, and you bring that light with you, you start to discover your purpose. And it is not to wallow in misery. Misery is miserable. Many of you have been miserable. I've been miserable. The way out of misery was not wallowing in misery. The way out of misery was, remember, well, my purpose is to bring as much light as possible to this misery. In fact, I left my jiu-jitsu studio this week. I'm going to put a bunch of wonderful photos on Facebook. What a great group of people. So we had a new student as I'm leaving, and we commiserated a bit. He's well into his 50s, and He said, so how'd you last? And I said, I almost didn't. I had a spinal injury and I used to come on crutches. He goes, wow, I had a spinal injury too. We talk about a herniated disc. And if you've never had a herniated disc, if you've never had a disc impinged straight onto your spine, you know, I don't know if you know what pain is. And we commiserated and we realized we had the same thought. Um, Either the pain conquers me, and it's the kind of pain I think I shared. This is the kind of pain where I had to chew on a rag, and so my screaming would not wake up the neighbors. I mean, it was that bad. And I thought to myself, yeah, but I'm not going to become the pain. I'm going to I'm going to be above the pain. I knew I was in pain, and we had incredibly similar experiences. Am I going to become the pain? Am I going to be all pain? I'm going to discover myself something above it or deeper. And that's what I want to recommend to you. And many of you know exactly what I'm talking about. Many of you have weathered very, very deep experiences. But when we lock antlers with misery, we become miserable. When we lock our antlers with miserable people, when we find ourselves in completely non-productive kinds of verbal transactions, we lose connection with the woven inner life, an inner life that is wondrously created. Beyond all the what I'm going to call the miraculous physics of the brain and our energy and the miraculous biology, there's the miracle of that which brought it together. That's still pulsating within us. It's dancing within us. It's moving within us. And from my experience and from my teaching, we have to connect with that on a daily basis. All my teaching and wisdom work is so that we can create the space to get to the depths. Because in our day-to-day wisdom, if you're involved in the 4 C's and the constant defensiveness and trying to make wrap other people to your designs, and we don't think rationally, we get stuck in toxic processing, there's no room for the spirit. And many people say to me, okay, so what's after if I master the basics of virtue and rationality and processing with others and managing ego states? I say, okay, if you're starting it as a wife, it's going to take you a couple of years. However, once you actually have your higher consciousness and your soul lined up and you can manage that, something miraculous will happen. You'll be aware of the miracle. It comes out of nowhere. You are overcome by it. That we can't predict what mastery of the inner life actually produces. It produces our being brought into a mystery that is so far beyond us. And what happens? It closes up. If we go back to our grumblings, if we go back to our resentments, if we go back to our fear and anxiety, some of it is very natural. There are things to resent. There are things to fear. But that's not the whole of our being. The whole of our being is rooted in this aspect of Psalm 139. So my commitment for tonight and tomorrow was the wisdom we need to work through suffering. I'm riffing off the Hasidic midrashic take on our where they take the 7-branch menorah, they go over to Proverbs 9, where they talk about the 7 pillars of wisdom. They line up very nicely, and the 7 pillars of wisdom described in Proverbs 9 are not mine, but it's certainly an invitation for each of us to talk about 7 pillars of wisdom. As you know, one of mine that I developed last week in a rather unworked out way, and I really want to take my talk from last week that many people responded to, and I want to shape it up. Life is filled with meaning that we can't define. We can only try to grasp the poetry of it. We can only try to experience it. We experience root words of the human condition. We don't want to define them. We want to live them. We want to, as it were, dance with them. We want their motion to move through us. So that's a little part of what I'll call the 7 branches of wisdom that I want to share, taken from last week. And the second was I did a completely, I went from the sublime to the mundane on how to think well. So much of our energy is dissipated from not thinking well, from not being regulated, not being rational, not thinking well. We find ourselves in traps of mind and spirit that just sap us. And then you get a hold of yourself. You remember what's at stake. We live with the souls of other human beings. There's so much at stake if we can stay connected to light. You just take a breath and calm down. I'm going to regulate. I'm going to be rational. I'm going to bring as much light to a tough situation as possible. Now, let me get on with my mission. So I hope that all of you take Rabbi Manning's Devar Torah with many, many beautiful teachings there. When you get to a high, there's going to be a low. That's okay. Our duty is to live the high, but not be too over-identified with it. It's part of the waves of human existence. When you get to the low, don't be over-identified with it. It's what happens. The main thing you identify with is the light, the miracle of being woven together in the mind of the divine. That's what we focus on. And everywhere we go, everything we do, if we can take a breath and step back and experience the divine mind weaving us together as we go through time. Again, you're living with the experience of the miraculous. Then you come back. You go back the other way. So now I can regulate my inner life. Now I can process better with other people because I know what's at stake. Now I can think clearly because I don't want my own confused thinking to get in the way of the light. Now I can be virtuous because there's nothing more important than bringing the light as much as we can to every situation. So we're making our move, and I just want to say one more thing. Mirav and I could not imagine it if we did not have this online community. It's so beyond expression that there's going to be a time difference, but we'll see you and you'll see us. And for these next years, you will accompany us and we will accompany you. And in many ways, Mirav and I feel that we're beginning a new Or HaTorah, the light of the Torah. We're refounding. We're down to almost. Mirav and I are your full-time staff, by the way. We're going to rebuild slowly and carefully, and we want to create something of really deep beauty and power and light. And we are. I sold my Suburban to a surfer kid from Huntington Beach, and when he bought my car, he says, "Man, I'm really stoked." So we're stoked. We are so ready to go and begin this new adventure. But the feeling that we have you with us, that we have you supporting us and accompanying us, it would be unimaginable without you. So much gratitude for creating the home in which all my teachings and Mirav's work could be incubated for all these years. And it's as if now we're starting a period in our lives where the greatest fruition is yet to be. So that's what we're feeling. If anybody wants to know what we're feeling.